Hey friends, welcome back to the channel Football Analytics. Today I'm going to be giving out tips for the last round of the Champions League, the Tuesdays and Wednesdays games. If you're a newcomer here, I suggest that you start betting on goals instead of outcomes of games, and also try to focus on betting on single games or doubles instead of the huge accumulators. Now, before we get into the tips, let's review what we had this weekend. Yesterday we went 3 for 2. That's a marginal profit if you're betting on single games, and also same thing happened on Saturday. Now, so the first tip was Fulham against West Ham. We had BTTS, and Fulham once again destroyed a team. They won 5-0. That's back-to-back 5-0 wins, and they have scored 16 goals in the last 4 games. That's insane. West Ham disappointed. They did have an XG, which is the expected goal ratio of 150, so they could have at least scored 1. But yeah, then we had in the French league, Lyon against Toulouse. We had Toulouse over 1. And Lyon won 3-0. Also, Toulouse had an expected ratio of 150. It's because they also missed a penalty in the end of the first half. That could have turned things around. And then we had 3 W's in a row. Anderlecht over 1.5. They played 2-2. And that's the benefit of taking goals instead of outcomes of games. Then we aced in the Serie A, Fiorentina just to score against Roma. It finished 1-1. It was a crazy game. Roma had 2 red cards. Dybala got injured. Lukaku had a red card. And they play Bologna, which is going to be an interesting game next time in the Serie A. And speaking of Bologna, we had them over 1.5. I guess that was the bet of the day because the odds were really high at 216. And it was done and dusted in the first 20 minutes. And Thiago Motta is a special coach. So yeah, overall, it could have been a better weekend. But both of the days were still marginal profits. And that's the benefits of betting on single games. Also, there were a few teams that during the week didn't provide us the results, like Frankfurt. We had them in the 3rd division. I mean, it was a suggestion of mine. They lost that game, and then they go back and win 5-1 against Bayern. St. Mirren won. Atalanta absolutely cooked this weekend. And that's why we have to keep track of the teams that we lost the bet on if they didn't score, because eventually they are going to end up scoring, just like it proved this weekend. Now, let's start off with the Tuesday's tips. Let's head to Group D, a game between Inter and Real Sociedad. Huge for both teams because they can still get the first place. Inter needs a victory, and Real Sociedad needs a draw, or just not to lose, and they'll be first. And both of those teams had a dominating weekend. Inter beat Udinese 4-0, and Real Sociedad ended up winning 0-3 away at Villarreal. Inter's been dominating Serie A overall, offensively and defensively. They are missing few players in defense, especially Dumfries, De Vrij, and Pavard are all out. And overall, even without them, they have 3 clean sheets in a row at home. But this game could be different because Inter will really need to be in attack mode the whole time to try to get that 1 goal, which is not easy against the Real Sociedad because they are also defensively solid. The first time they met, Real Sociedad dominated that game. Inter were lucky to get a draw right in the end, but Real Sociedad should have won that one. Now, I think this is going to be an unpopular pick amongst you guys because, as I said, both of those teams are really solid defensively, but Inter need to get the W, and I could see potentially Real Sociedad biting them in counterattacks, and we just need 1 goal to happen, and I think both of those teams will be scoring. The odds are currently 180, so that's going to be my first tip, that both of those teams will score. Now, for the second tip, let's remain in the same group, a game between Salzburg and Benfica. The Europa League spot, the 3rd spot, is still not set in stone for Salzburg, because if Benfica wins by 2 goals, they will go as 3rd place. And Benfica finally had a decent performance at home against Inter, even though Inter was playing with the second team, but they were winning 3-0. João Mario hat-trick, and then Inter managed to come back. They could have won the game. Also, Barella had a crossbar in the end. But still, it was signs of life from Benfica. We finally waited for them to score the over 1.5 goals. And their opponent Salzburg has been playing really low scoring games. They have 3 clean sheets in a row, and all of those games have been under 1.5, and that's unlike Salzburg with the way they score, especially at home. And I also think in this game, Benfica will have to risk. They'll play offensively. So I doubt it's going to be another under 1.5 game for Salzburg. I also see both teams scoring in this game. The odds are lower than the first one. It's at 156. So that's going to be my second tip. Now for a third tip, let's head to Group C, a game between Napoli and Braga. Napoli didn't officially qualify yet. They can still lose by a 1-goal margin against Braga and they'll qualify. But if they lose by 2 goals, that's when Braga qualifies. And Napoli have been absolutely terrible at home. They haven't won in 6 consecutive games, 4 losses and 2 draws. And they haven't scored in 2 consecutive games in a row at home. And Braga is a pretty solid team. They're only 2 points away from the top of the Portuguese league. I'm tempted to go BTTS here as well. And I think it would be a decent bet if you go for it. But I'm looking for Napoli to finally break out of their negative streak of not winning games at home, or at least score the over 1.5, because that's what we're going to be taking. That's my third tip. Napoli over 1.5 to seal the deal in the group and to qualify. Now, for the last tip on Tuesday, we go to the funnest group in the UCL, Group A game between Copenhagen and Galatasaray. The second spot is still up for grabs. We've got Man United Bayern in that game. I see Man United having a really low chance to qualify. Whoever wins this game is going to qualify. And we all know about Copenhagen, their situation, especially playing at home. They've been absolutely terrible. 2 losses and 1 draw in the last 3 games. While Galatasaray has been playing well, over 1.5 goals in 4 consecutive games for them. This game could go either way in terms of outcomes. I'm not sure who is going to win it, but I do think that both of those teams are going to be scoring. I think it's going to be open football, just like we saw with Galatasaray and Man United. We could have a similar game. And I don't think Galatasaray over 1.5 is a bad tip also, but I'm more comfortable with going BTTS here with the way this group has been going. A lot of goals being scored, so odds are 152. Now let's start off with the Wednesday's tips and let's head to Group H, a huge game between Porto and Shakhtar. Porto need just a draw to qualify, and Shakhtar will need to pull off a miracle, let's say. They need a W in Porto, which is not an easy task at all. However, it happened. In the last 6 games, Porto lost 2 games at home. So there's always a possibility there. And Shakhtar has been playing really solid defensively, 4 clean sheets in a row. And we've just seen it in the Champions League. They had 2 clean sheets in a row versus Barcelona and Antwerp. That's why they're in this position. This game could get defensive, but I see Shakhtar going all in, especially in the second half. But I see Porto qualifying in this group. And I'll take here that Porto will score over 1.5 goals. For odds 153, which is not great, but I don't see any miracles happening in this game. So that's going to be my first tip, Porto to qualify and to score over 1.5 goals against Shakhtar. Now for a second tip, let's head to Group E, a game between Celtic and Feyenoord. Everything is settled in this group. Feyenoord is going to the Europa League, while Atletico and Lazio will still battle for first place. So this game is meaningless for Feyenoord. While Celtic have only 1 point in this group, but we could argue they should have more because they played really fantastic football at home. First, they had the tough loss against Lazio when Lazio scored in the 94th minute, and then they had the draw against Atletico. So especially playing at home, they deserve more than 1 point. And I think the value here of over 1 goal for odds 155 is pretty good, especially that Celtic is coming off a tough loss in the Scottish League, which happens really rarely. And Feyenoord, we should check the lineups. So maybe you should bet 1 hour before the game who Feyenoord is going to be playing. Maybe it's not going to be the starters. And I just see Celtic here playing with pride and scoring over 1 goal. And for the newcomers, over 1 goal means refund straight. Get a website that has this bet. And if Celtic scores 2 goals, that's when you win the bet. You will only lose it if Celtic don't manage to score, which I don't think is going to be happening. So the second tip, Celtic over 1 goal for odds 155. Now for a third tip, let's head to the Group of Death, a game between Newcastle and Milan. There's still many possibilities and outcomes that can happen. Any of those teams can qualify still. Now Newcastle is coming off 2 terrible losses where they conceded 7 goals in the Premier League. They're dealing with injuries still, and Milan is not better. We had actually Atalanta Milan BTTS. Milan conceded 3 goals, lost that game in the end, and Milan hasn't won in 4 games in a row, but they did score over 1.5 goals in 3 of them. I hope this is not going to be a 0-0 stinky game, especially till the end of the game, because none of these teams need a draw. They need a victory. So I can see also in this game, both of those teams scoring. The bookies are currently giving us odds 172. Now for last tip, we remain in the Group of Death. It's a game between Dortmund and PSG. Dortmund already qualified. And this game is still important though, because they're playing for the first seed. Because if PSG wins this game, they go as first place. And that's huge in the UCL. Now, Dortmund is coming off a tough loss against Leipzig where they played with 10 men most of the game. They managed to score 2 goals though, and they haven't been performing well. They haven't had a W in the last 3 games, and most of the money right now is going on PSG. The odds are so low for PSG to win. It's at 186, but I don't see it happening that way. I think this game is still important for Dortmund. So I think they'll try to defend the first place, and the bookies are giving us really good odds for Dortmund just over 1 goal. It's at 172. So this will be my final tip for Wednesday. Guys, this is it for the last round of the Champions League. We have 8 tips. Hope you're happy with them and the information that I provided. Hit the thumbs up to support this channel, and I'm going to be back for the Europa League and the Conference League. So bet responsibly, stay healthy, and I'll be seeing you very soon. Adios.